Central Empire Wrestling presents Bridge City Slam 6 live Saturday, September 7th at the Bridgeview Center in Ottumwa. Come see Jake the Snake Roberts, Buff Bagwell, former WWE Tag Team Champions Demolition, Real One Enzo Amore, The Powers of Pain, The Boogeyman, Snitsky, Jordan Grace, Cameron Brennan, and the stars of CEW. Tickets start at just $20 and include the Fan Fest from 4 to 7 p.m. Get your tickets through Ticketmaster or at the Bridgeview Center in Ottumwa. It's Bridge City Slam 6, live Saturday, September 7th at the Bridgeview Center in Ottumwa. New Life Fellowship in Keswick, Iowa is hosting the Victorious Living Conference Friday, August 23rd through Sunday, August 25th, with guest pastors Luke and Jana Hobbs from Tennessee. You're invited to make plans to join New Life Fellowship in Keswick for this dynamic time of anointed worship, teaching, and ministry. New Life Fellowship is located just south of Keswick on Highway 22. The conference schedule is Friday, August 23rd at 7 p.m., Saturday, August 24th at 6 p.m., and Sunday, August 25th at 6 p.m. We hope to see you for the Victorious Living Conference.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast. The For Frequency Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong, Nick Bull.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. I am your host, Never Wrong, Nick Bull. Want to let you know that we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Episode 142, Keeping the Faith. Thank you for keeping the faith and coming back and joining us for another episode. We're so glad you're here. We couldn't do this without my co-partner, my co-champ of the For Frequency's Sake Network, the one, the only, the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good. We got to see some live wrestling last night. Always a good weekend when you can see some live wrestling. And I'm excited. We've got somebody brand new in the house. Someone a little outside of our area. He's from Southeast Georgia, a little bit north of Jacksonville. We're going to bring him on here in just a minute. I'm excited to talk to somebody new, Nick. What do you think?
Yeah, we were kind of sharing off air. Anytime you get to talk to somebody about wrestling is great, but talking to somebody new that you've never met before and talking wrestling and hitting it off with wrestling is really a cool thing. And that's what I really like about this show is I love all of our guests. I love having people on here repeat times, but those times we have somebody on the first time and get to pick their brain and hear their wrestling story and what they like about wrestling or what they watch in wrestling is really my favorite part about this show. So I'm looking forward to that part.
Yeah, and we're going to bring him into the studio. He is a second-generation wrestler and an Army veteran. Let's welcome into the studio Mr. Johnny Faith. Johnny, how are you, my friend?
Hey, gentlemen, good. I'm good this evening. It's good to see you guys, and thank you guys for having me on. It's a great opportunity, and I'm excited to talk wrestling with you guys and share some stories.
Well, we want to thank you, one, for coming on, and also we want to thank you, two, for your service. We appreciate that.
Hey, thank you, sir. I appreciate the support, and yeah, thanks.
Well, Johnny, I'm going to kick it off like I always do every show, and I ask our first-time guests the same question. So I'm going to treat you the same, just like everybody else. Why pro wrestling? What got you hooked into this wonderful thing that we all love and want to talk about?
So as a kid, I was flipping through Saturday morning cartoons, looking for something to watch. You know, it's kind of the same old stuff. I was bored, didn't really see anything. And then, bam, I'd hit the channel and there was a WCW Saturday morning program on my television screen for the first time ever. And I was hooked, and I wound up telling my mom all about it and was like, you know, look at this. I found this, like these big guys, you know, they're beating the crap out of each other, you know, throwing each other around. And my mom was like, you should talk to your grandfather because your grandfather did that in the 70s and early 80s.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, I'm like 7 years old. And my mom's telling me this. So, the next time I see my grandfather, which was, probably later that day or the next day, because, we all lived in the same neighborhood. So we were kind of a close knit group. I asked him all about it, and he was just like, I got so much to tell you, if you really want to hear. And, that's when he told me he was a professional wrestler. He worked in the Southeast. So he worked mostly North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, some Florida, that area. He worked for the Crockett's for a little while here and there throughout his career as well. He worked for the IWA as well. And, he pretty much went all throughout the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast, during his about 8 or 9 year wrestling career. So bam, family lineage, that is what got me hooked on professional wrestling right there.
We've never had an answer like that, Johnny. We've had people on that had a relative or so that maybe dabbled in the profession a little bit, but nobody that, sustained it for a 9-year run. And you're down there in the heart of.
So
look at that.
Here's a picture of him and his tag team partner. My grandfather's the one with the goatee kneeling, but that's a picture of him and his tag team partner.
What was the name of the tag team and what was his ring name?
I am unsure of the tag team name, but I know his ring name was Jimmy Faith.
Okay. That is so cool. You are in the heart of the Mid-Atlantic territory, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and your grandpa was your grandpa was a part of that. I mean, if I was 6 or 7 years old and I had a relative, particularly a grandfather, that did that, my mind would be blown. I mean, you had to be like a kid in a candy store at that time.
I was. It was very interesting, and then my mom would chime in some and be like, I remember going and seeing Dad wrestle, and he'd bring home these great big belts, and as a kid I never really understood what those were, and obviously as I got older I understood, but I remember going to wrestling matches, and Mom would drive us, to see Grandpa wrestle or to see Dad wrestle. And, that was pretty cool, that me and my mom had that connection as well. And then we wound up watching wrestling together throughout, the rest of my, teenage years and all that, up until I got out of the house. We watched wrestling every Monday night during the Monday Night Wars and all that. So that was a great, once I discovered wrestling and they realized I was interested in it, that was a great relationship builder, for my mother and for me and my grandfather as well.
Okay, so you mentioned the Monday Night Wars. Whenever I hear that, in the back of my mind, my first question is, were you a WCW guy or were you a WWF guy?
I was a WCW guy, and I'll tell you why. Because my grandfather was very particular with WCW. Because a lot of his friends, a lot of his, acquaintances, people that he wrestled throughout his career, wound up either working for them as either a wrestler or a backstage agent or in some capacity. And he didn't really like the WWF back then because, they were buying up all the territories. And he really didn't like that his buddies were getting put out of jobs and they were trying to find other places to work. And he didn't really like that much about WWF, but he was really keen to WCW. So I think that's where my heritage lies with WCW. Plus, that was the first ever wrestling program I ever found on TV.
I was just going to ask, fair. With being a WCW guy, was WCW Saturday Night, as Dusty Rhodes called it, the mothership? Was it appointment viewing for you back in the day?
Every Saturday night at 6:05 sharp.
Yes.
Whether I was at home, whether I was at my grandparents' house, it didn't matter. If I could get on that TV and watch it, I would. Same with Mondays. Same with, even WWF shows like programming, like Shotgun Saturday Night. That used to come on really late at night on Saturday nights, and I'd be a kid staying awake late watching Shotgun Saturday Night. Once I figured out what WWF was, and once I discovered WWF and their programming, then it was 24/7 wrestling. As long as I could get a hold of a TV, I was watching it.
So let me ask you this: obviously your grandfather, obviously your family heritage, but who do you gravitate towards in the world of wrestling? Who inspired you to actually put on the boots, put on the tights, and get in the ring?
Who actually inspired? That's a good one. I don't know I don't know if I've been asked who has inspired me in the world of wrestling. You know, I always thought Stone Cold was really cool because he beat the crap out of everyone. And I always thought it would be a good idea or a good job to show up to work every day and beat the crap out of people, especially your boss. You know, so I always thought that was probably a very fun job and something that I could do. You know, and plus even growing up in the early 90s with the cartoonish characters, you know, that WWF had, you know, and how cartoony they were and how more they were inclined to, you know, children and audiences of, you know, small kids and stuff. You know, I love that too, because you could be anything. You could be a garbage man kicking the crap out of somebody. You know, you could be, you know, the Brooklyn Brawler. Like, you know, it didn't matter who you were. You know, I was all about, you know, contact sports growing up, I guess. Watching TV, beginnings of UFC and things like that. But, you know, wrestling really helped me, you know, pass the time, you know, when it came to watching TV and all that. So to be honest with you, the only person I could really think of, you know, besides like Ric Flair, you know, and, you know, the people that influenced me as well. Stone Cold, I always thought was cool because he just showed up every day and beat the crap out of people, including his boss. So I always thought, you know, if I could grow up to do something like that, you know, maybe that would be a pretty good job for me.
We're joined here on the Card Subject to Change podcast by war-driven Johnny Faith, the podcast by the fan for the fan. And Johnny, I want to ask you, is there like a particular angle or a match you remember growing up that really stuck with you and, you know, still sticks with you to this day? I mean, for example, I'll remember when Macho Man got bit by Jake the Snake's Cobra, and that really resonated with me as a kid. Like, I thought I couldn't believe a guy was getting bit in the ring by a cobra, and that like it still sticks with me after all these years. Is there something, a match or an angle that you saw growing up, or maybe in your teenage years, that really stuck with you and is very memorable for you?
It had to be the infamous Hell in a Cell, Undertaker versus Mankind. You know, like when Undertaker first threw Mankind off that cage through that announce table, and, you know, everyone kind of was questioning, you know, was it real? Did it happen? Like, did people know about it? Is the match going to continue? Is the match over? Like, is that it? Is it a one and like just off, you know, because we never seen nothing like that before. I mean, the Hell in a Cell concept, we hadn't really seen that much prior to that match as well. We saw, you know, at Bad Blood, you know, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, and something similar to that where Shawn fell through the announce table, but he was only hanging off the side of the cage. He didn't get thrown off the top. So to see that as a kid, I think I was 13 or 14. To see that as a kid, I was just like, whoa. And then the match went on and continued for like another 20 minutes. Then he got choke slammed through the cage roof onto the ring. Like, seeing that, even seeing it today, you know, 25 plus years later, you know, it still baffles me that, you know, he continued and was tough. And, you know, that intrigued me as well to be a wrestler, because I mean, that took some guts, and, you know, that took some fortitude, you know, that a lot of people don't have. And to see, you know, larger than life characters like that on the screen, or people portrayed like that, you know, that really resonated with me, that match. And it'll always be a great moment in wrestling history as well, because I even watched it live, you know, on a little 13-inch screen TV with my uncle and my grandpa. You know, we watched it live, you know, it happened on pay-per-view, and that will always resonate with me as one of the memories that helped me get into the ring, inspired me to be a wrestler, and just overall just entertained the crap out of me probably for the rest of my life, that match.
Yeah, that's a very polarizing match. I mean, I'm a few years older than you. I remember having friends over, watching it live on pay-per-view, and we're all looking at each other in disbelief like, did that just happen? You know, wrestling is quote-unquote fake, but there was nothing fake about that. I saw that with my own eyes. A guy got thrown off a cage and went into a table. That wasn't fake, you know, and I think everybody that's seen that live or maybe saw it for the first time will remember where they were and always go back to that. That's a great point. That's easily one of the most memorable matches of all time. Once you think about it, all the players involved and all the different things that happened. I know I know CZ, we've talked about this match ad nauseum before, just all the different intricacies of it. You know, you got Taker, Mankind, Mick Foley, whatever you want to call him. Terry Funk gets involved. I mean, there was
pretty much
lot.
all the backstage people got involved. They came out there was trying to tell them to stay down. Like, hey, stay down, man. We're good. Nah, man, let's keep going. Let's get the tax out and, you know, like just beat the crap out of each other. Like that's all that match was just them two just brawling. Like it was just like a straight brawl. Like